I'm very pleased to present to you our podcast guests today, who represent a company that is actually one of the very first crypto exchanges to be established in Belarus. The company is called Bynex.
A portion of our population is students. That is, we actually take a direct part in lecturing, in fact.
ICO, or initial coin offering, please excuse my accent. Yes, it's the creation of new coins that are not cryptocurrencies.
Even structures like the National Bank, they come to listen and learn what our lecturers have to say.
Have you considered the possibility of, say, even being in the AIFC?
I'll just tell you a story like this.
Yes, please.
It was mentioned that in 2024 we participated even with a Bynex stand in Kazakhstan, in Almaty. We arrived, everything was great, a beautiful, colorful stand, a QR code with a commission discount, 0% commission. And unfortunately, even the organizers didn't warn us about this, that it turns out access to external exchanges within Kazakhstan is blocked. So not a single client who came up and was interested in the Belarusian crypto exchange could log in without a VPN.
So at the legislative level, that is to say a citizen or resident of Kazakhstan, for clarity, cannot use it.
Therefore, our entry into Kazakhstan
was unsuccessful.
No, it's not that it was unsuccessful, but actually we also, let's say, gained our own insights, right, which were needed at that time. But we arrived, but we weren't really all that welcome.
Well, because...
That's why we left.
Listen, okay, but for onboarding, you can accept clients from Kazakhstan, right?
We can... Well, look, we have the only, not even for us, but a requirement for the main stopper, not counting all sorts of FATF blacklists or terrorist lists. Well, that's an obvious no right away. And the main stopper for a potential client is whether it's prohibited by their legislation, right? So, no. I think there aren't many such countries because if it's strictly forbidden to deal with cryptocurrencies at all, then the internet there is probably not very developed. So globally, we don't perceive it as a really serious factor for a stop. But if the legislator slightly disagrees with this approach, then it won't work. But that's more on the user's side in this case. About this story with Kazakhstan. In the end, citizens of Kazakhstan can go to a neighboring country, right, and use a different internet, or come to us. So we won't have any questions for them. We'll onboard them if there are no other issues, please. We surely have such clients. Yes, but the question is already about how each one protects the market. And of course, we considered options. We have a representative office. In one of the countries, we had options. We discussed projects for registering a branch or another separate legal entity. Well, at the moment, we are focused here because one of the goals of the HTP and this entire legal regime was to operate as a crypto hub in particular. And as residents of this crypto hub, we are primarily working through the advantages of this position. So further territorial expansion is also in our plans. There are various options for development and promotion. We are not ruling anything out. At the moment, right now, we are focused on internal work, which doesn't exclude working with non-residents, and moreover, in some ways, it's even aimed at them. Because we have something for the domestic market and we offer it and explain it, but we also count on connecting other currencies and attracting other flows. Of course, we are not closing off access to other markets with any artificial barriers.
Well, just to continue this, let's say this topic, specifically the Astana International Financial Center, it was actually created to be a kind of starting point for development specifically in Central Asia. It's not limited to just Kazakhstan. So there's nothing surprising here, right, that the filing was successful on the first try. Therefore, the status of an AIFC participant basically greatly expands the opportunities. Because if you even look at the numbers, today the AIFC already has about 5,000 companies from almost 100 countries, with a total combined capitalization of 20 billion. So that's quite a large number, despite the fact that the jurisdiction itself is relatively young, right? That is, the AIFC has been operating since 2018, and basically they do a lot to popularize this jurisdiction, and many companies come there and are invited. Actually, that's why we went there, right? To have a kind of start in Central Asia, because, well, it seems to me you would also be interested because the population around Kazakhstan, we're not just talking about Kazakhstan, right? Being an AIFC participant means having access to the markets of Central Asia. Uzbekistan alone has 40 million people. And by the way, if you look at the statistics of post-Soviet countries, Uzbekistan has a very high digital penetration among the population, really very high. I'm afraid.
And what do you mean here by digital penetration?
Well, the fact that they use cryptocurrencies very heavily.
So we're talking about cryptocurrency.
Yes, our clients, for example, they are all very comfortable with crypto. Very comfortable. And among the youth there.
Okay, wait, no, sorry, I have to ask. So what do they do with it? I mean, are there also payments like with salaries in Kazakhstan?
The thing is, the situation here is as follows. This market in Uzbekistan, if we're talking about Uzbekistan, right, it's not regulated as such. Right now, as you said at the beginning of our talk, it's in a gray zone now, meaning it's going through a certain transformation phase that, well, didn't happen, was absent in Belarus, for instance, right? It would have been nice, by the way, if it had been there, maybe things would have turned out differently. So at this very moment, well, in my subjective view, that's exactly what's happening in Uzbekistan now. That's why the youth use it so actively. And one of the main communication tools overall is Telegram. That also says something, right?
So what exactly are they doing with this cryptocurrency after all?
They have very well developed mutual settlements and exchange offices. There are many, unfortunately, well, here I must emphasize, unfortunately, many companies, offshore companies that are present in Uzbekistan. Again, because the penetration of digital assets among the population is very high, because, well, sorry for the bad form, but people just have a lot of money. That's it. That's why they're present there. If you look, just check out the brokerage firms, all the top 10, starting with Almaty and so on, they're all present there. Well, that says something. The market is quite large. So, well, just as an aside, take note, it's quite...
We'll keep that in mind. No, but overall, certainly, I'll repeat my point. We're not closing ourselves off to anything. It's just not all at once.
Got it. Great. So, by the way, we should also talk about CBDC.
Oh.
That's also a cool topic. It's being discussed a lot. And for 2026, 2027, the National Bank promises it'll definitely be here. By the way, we already have the abbreviation for the Belarusian electronic ruble. You saw it, right?
But it's not for the electronic one. It's for any...
It's in general.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're right to correct me there.
Yeah, we can talk about CBDC.
Yeah. Dmitry, could you please comment on the initiative of the National Bank of Belarus to introduce it in 2026, especially in the context of the current situation, right?
You phrased the question, so how can anyone comment on an initiative of the National Bank?
Well, as a representative of the crypto industry, you're a company that was one of the first to become a crypto exchange. You're a pioneer.
Yes, that's us.
So who better than you, after all, to share your thoughts?
There are others. No, actually, no. Well, we do. We have something to say about this. Actually, if we go back a bit deeper, then in fact CBDC or digital, let's decode it now, central bank digital currency, in our case the digital Belarusian ruble, is essentially a state stablecoin. So it's also a blockchain coin that's issued, but it's only minted by the state and in a much larger volume than any other coin minted in the country. So yes, we were talking a bit earlier about how we're waiting for new projects in the ICO space. Perhaps the next project in the ICO field will be the Belarusian digital ruble, which will come out before we can launch anything else. But then again, maybe not. Of course, the initiative is inevitable because we weren't the ones who came up with it here. And it's obvious that the regulator must know how to use it because it's a trend, at least for discussion and development globally. And we're not falling behind either. We're working on it. As a company participating in the crypto market, we don't have any direct involvement in this. It's not even discussed with us, you have to understand. This is a matter of a different order. It's more of a fiscal issue, I suppose, and the issuance is essentially a new money supply. So how will this ultimately affect the user? Right now we have two forms of money, that's cash and non-cash. A third form of money is appearing, digital, which in theory should replace or displace non-cash money to some extent. Possibly theoretically, I'm not saying how it'll be, but it might eventually replace it entirely. We'll have cash, or at least until it ceases to exist as a phenomenon, and then there'll only be digital money. We view this as, I don't know, well, we're still in a waiting position. We're waiting to see we have no way of influencing this process. We're certainly watching with interest to see what comes of it. You're right, the plan is that by mid-year, a more or less broad pilot will appear, showing how to work with it. As far as I know, it'll be tied only to legal entities for now. Individuals, For now, individuals won't be allowed access to it. Maybe they never will be. I don't know how things will go. No, let's put it another way here. As far as I know, at the first stage at least, only legal entities will be allowed, and we'll see what comes of it all. I'd say the task of any crypto platform, including ours, is to learn to work with the digital ruble, because it definitely falls within our domain and sphere. And we'll definitely need to be able to accept it and conduct transactions using it. That's a fact, that's our task, we'll work on it, but we're waiting for more detailed documentation and results. At the moment, our information in the public domain is limited to the concept. It's posted on the National Bank's website, we've studied it, read it, the principle is clear. You can't say there's anything supernaturally new there. So we're just issuing, well, not that it's simple, it's not, but we're getting a new form of money to be used in the same settlements we have now. This money has additional advantages, a number of features dictated by the use of blockchain technology. Additional traceability, some addressing, different processing, obviously, and we'll have to think about how to work with that and what to do with it. Well, we'll figure it out. I don't have an assessment of whether it's good or bad, not at all. In any case, it's more of a, I'll repeat, a necessary step. If we don't do it ourselves, then, well, we'll have to watch or catch up or do something else or do it in another currency. So, as an individual, I quite agree with the National Bank's decision that we need to look into this. And of course, not to miss the moment, while we have the opportunities and the expertise in the country to handle this. So, yeah, for now, but globally we're watching and waiting to see what comes of it to understand what to do next.
Yes, that's the global trend. And in the media, the opinions of like ordinary people are very divided. Yeah. It was interesting to hear the opinion of like a specialist firsthand, as they say, who understands and is in the loop.
And how is it in Kazakhstan with the digital tenge?
It's all the same. We have, by the way, quite a lot of parallels. And I can say the following, at least in my view. When it comes to digital assets and the overall digitalization of the population, of course, Kazakhstan is actually a bit ahead, yeah. If we even look at the internal functionality of e-services, yeah. E-government in Kazakhstan and the e-poslugi system in Belarus, yeah. So these processes are definitely going on and they're happening in parallel, yeah. But it's actually pretty clear that Kazakhstan is, at this point, just a bit ahead. Because at one time, the current president made a big bet on the development of digital in general. There's, in Kazakhstan, there's a minister of digital development, yeah. That is, they've made this industry into a separate ministry. They're doing a lot for this. A huge computer was created, the capacity of which was bought by Pavel Durov. The opening of the Alem Digital Center in Astana, the opening of the Telegram headquarters by Pavel Durov, yeah, was quite a significant event, actually. The latest exhibition, which took place in the year 2025 within the Astana hub, where Pavel Durov himself was present in person, is also further proof of this ongoing trend. They're really putting a lot of emphasis and focus on this particular development, yeah, which is like a bit less noticeable to most people. Maybe I could be wrong about this, yeah, but that's just how it seems to me at the moment, you know? I mean, from the inside, maybe you can see it better. Than how it's done in Belarus, yeah, I mean, maybe not on the same scale, but one way or another it's being done, so there are some parallels. And I can also say the following, as you correctly noted at the start of the conversation, the global trend is that everything is moving towards tightening and over-regulation of digital assets in general, basically. But, well, maybe it's a bit premature to say for sure at the current moment, and perhaps it really shouldn't be so harsh or strict anymore. But nevertheless, these kinds of trends and tendencies do exist and can be observed in Kazakhstan as well, just like in some other places. Because recent events confirm this, that even within the AIFC framework, we, as an AIFC participant, are regularly warned that, well, they make certain specific requests. We are obliged to provide information about who we work with, how we work, what assets come in, what assets go out, where these assets come from, and so on. So basically, that's the whole story. So everything is moving towards strict regulation of digital trends. How it will be in a year, 2 or 3, it's hard for me to say. But nevertheless, these are the trends if we're talking about regulation in Kazakhstan.
Listen, regarding this regulation, can I ask a question just for fun? Well, I can confirm, news about the supercomputer and other things, they reach us too. Yeah, we didn't have such a computer or such neural networks. Most likely or rather, let's say, I admit and recognize that Kazakhstan has huge potential. We also see a lot of evidence of this. And again, in the world news that reaches us and elsewhere, we're not even really competing, We didn't have the goal of beating Kazakhstan in digitalization. But can you just give a real-life example where something was digitalized and people were like, great?
Well, I mentioned the electronic government system, right? So basically all interactions with the state, they're all through the app.
Is that possible?
You don't have to go anywhere at all, like not even once. So it's actually very convenient.
I recently went to get a certificate stating that I'm not registered at one of the clinics. Yeah, I needed it.
Well, you went there?
Yes, that's why I'm speaking in contrast. And I got there and thought, what am I doing? Why am I here? In the end, I was able to pay for this certificate with Apple Pay, but I had to go there in person at 7 in the morning, and I was standing there paying and thinking,
well, you see,
how does this even happen? Right? Yeah, we definitely have room to grow. And for now, we definitely have growth points, yeah?
No, actually, quite a lot has been done here in Belarus too, yeah. For example, the ePozlugi app system, or whatever it's called correctly. ePozlugi, I understand its potential is already quite large, comprehensive, and broad, yeah. And I think that in 1, 2, or 3 years, Belarus will definitely catch up with Kazakhstan.
Actually, I confirm that, and we even have it starting literally this year.
Mm-hmm.
Some administrative procedures, even at the corporate level, can only be done through the ePozlugi account. So already...
Well, there you go. Super.
So, obviously there'll be a turning point and somewhere someone will need a little push to get there. But because people are generally lazy and they need to be taught a bit first, given some guidance. I'm judging by my mother, who, as long as she wasn't too lazy to go to the post office, went and paid her utility bills there. And then later, when it was really time, I said, come on, let me teach you. It's just 3 minutes of work. And then she says to me, my God, it's so simple, as it turns out. I said, imagine that. I haven't been telling you this for 10 years for no reason. It's clear that people will need to be trained a little bit.
Trained.
And, well, I hope we'll also be able to boast about something more soon.
Well, I have no doubt at all. This is a follow-up to what Olga mentioned about the huge amount of work you're doing in terms of educating the public and students. Well, it would seem strange, but nevertheless, students are young, progressive people, considering that there's a lot of information, access to information. There are questions about the quality of information, of course. It's sometimes contradictory, but still, yes. But it seemed to me that students definitely don't need to be taught anymore. Yes?
That's the difference. We don't claim, we don't plan, and we didn't even have any intention to compete with, say, so-called experts, if you can even call them that, in quotes, who offer their trading courses, earn here and now, and here please take a ruble and you'll have 1 million. Of course not. Our main goal is specifically to discuss in detail the fact that there is indeed legal regulation of cryptocurrency, what exactly it is, what blockchain technology is, and how to work legally with cryptocurrencies at the level of a simple, everyday user. And it's not just that we're tied to Bynex as a crypto platform. We're talking in general, because Dmitry here is one of the lecturers as well, right? This is the person who takes on a part of the course. And in this section, he takes the time to explain in more detail what the course actually is, making sure everyone understands what it is all about. That is the very basics. Not just about, go tap some hamsters or play some games. No, we have, let's say a serious event. We're all serious people. We work at serious jobs. So our goal is really not to try to sell, right? Especially since we do it all absolutely for free. Not to sell these ideas that everyone should go into crypto, but actually the opposite. Dmitry said it right, and I completely agree with him that we support, let's say, not the simplification of entry into crypto, but on the contrary, we actually advocate for a much more rational, thoughtful, and truly adequate perception and understanding that these are indeed very high risks. It is important to recognize and remember that entering this space involves significant potential dangers. Everything related to money, to cryptocurrencies. And here we really shouldn't just try to simplify things, but instead we should focus on properly educating our users and then conduct an exam for our users as well. Basically, we're required to have our users take a mini test during registration, consisting of 5, if I'm not mistaken.
A sanity check.
Questions, yes.
broadly speaking, yes.
A sanity check.
Yes, to see how rational you are and if you know at least some basic things. We're even saying that, with this particular test, what actually happens most of the time typically is...
Every now and then someone slips through.
Yes, and not all of our users always manage to pass it, as you might expect. There was an initiative to simplify this test, to which my personal opinion is absolutely not. If anything, it should be harder in order to protect our users and ensure their safety and security. We want to prevent them from making any hasty or impulsive moves.
The headline will be, Bynex proposes that everyone take a knowledge exam? No, but jokes aside, yes.
Well, just like like you might expect, yes, owning a car, so to speak, and for driving there's a license, so why not?
No, I completely agree with you. And this, well, it wouldn't be so funny if it weren't so sort of sad, because here's a case from my own, let's say, from my own practice. We have plenty of clients, right, where you actually look at their trades and, well, you see that the person went in, well, just with their entire portfolio, all their money. Well, people call it going all in with the whole pot, right? You actually call the person and say, well, do you realize that these trades carry huge risks? I mean, just massive. If things swing even a little bit right now, that's it. It closes on a stop out. I understand everything. So the person says, I understand everything, but I'm clearly aware that the person doesn't understand their risks. They don't understand them at all, basically. That's it. So here, it's also important to understand, right? And to know and to make the client realize that their money is their responsibility. That's clear. And any operations on the financial market and specifically on the crypto market are also...
But for awareness?
Yes, that needs to be understood. Categorization here is also very important, by the way. And I think that what I would tighten, I agree with you here, is categorization. Right here for the client, when our client goes through categorization with us, well, sometimes they actually complain. I mean, people complain quite a lot.
And does categorization in your case set some kind of limits for them? Like on the amount, on the quantity?
Yes. The thing is, we have the right, according to our license, to provide services only to professionals. In order to categorize them as a professional, right, we have to understand what they are, who they are, and what instruments they trade, what their trading experience is, and so on and so forth. And even their education should be, well, as close as possible to being able to clearly and adequately assess their risks and just what he does in general.
But at the same time, we're confirming that there are certain issues. Well, let's say there's a certain lack of information, but then there are, of course, super savvy clients who...
Clued in?
Totally. I mean, those who... I don't know, I wouldn't be surprised if they send you a 5-page request in tiny print, packed with all those regulations and references. And you're like, my respect, you just sit down and read it. Well, I'm not saying we're not complaining. There are different people, of course. There are those who prepare very well, who take a very serious approach to it. There are those who, unfortunately, it's not like we blame them. I mean, someone saw an opportunity and then starts digging into the details. Some people think it's easy. I don't think so. I never thought it was easy. Having worked in this from the very beginning, from handling all these documents to building processes, I understand even more that it's not easy at all. And somehow when people actually ask me questions like, what do you recommend investing in? If you're asking me, I recommend you don't invest in anything at all.
Agreed.
Yeah, because I don't give that kind of advice to anyone.
The question itself already defines it, basically.
It does, yeah, absolutely not. I mean, all investments are at your own risk, and after a long, thorough, meticulous study, don't just hope. Either you treat it like luck, well then just don't complain. So it's either a thoughtful approach or you're just entertaining yourself this way. It's acceptable, but by the way, yeah, one of our key points that my colleagues and I always convey to listeners, whoever they may be, and whether they're students or just adults who are undergoing professional development, we have different groups and we participate in different things, different projects. The thought is always the same, that you shouldn't put us in the same category as a casino. A crypto exchange is not a casino, it's not entertainment. A crypto exchange is a financial tool that allows you to interact with finances and other assets. It's not done for luck, it's not for fun, it's hard financial work. If you want to do this and be in this world, you need to understand it. Otherwise, well, we don't complain, we're not surprised in that case.
I always give a simple analogy when someone asks me if trading in general is a casino, no matter, what format a person trades in. I always give a simple analogy. If you want to frame trading as a game, you could do that with any kind of human activity.
And especially business.
Especially business. You cross the road, you go on the green light, don't you? You use the crosswalk. And special people who know how to manage their risks also look both right and left in order to reduce the risk. But at the same time, despite all that, we don't rule out the possibility that someone could still knock us down, right? It's pretty much the same here. So it's a matter of financial literacy first, general knowledge level, and the ability to manage your risks. That's essentially how I always answer, because people are different. A lot of people associate finance specifically with a casino because there's still a certain element of luck involved.
Or bad luck. Let's call it an element of chance.
Yes, so...
Absolutely, but that's the thing. Well, the main part, probably, or one of the main parts of working with these tools is the ability to manage probabilities and work with risks, including accepting those risks and being prepared for them. So that's absolutely correct.
By the way, how did this whole hype story starting from 2017 affect you and the industry in Belarus in general? When, remember, Bitcoin was 3,500, then by the end of the year, it soared to, I think, something like 12 from the start of 18. So there were these very strong swings, and it was heavily inflated by hype. And then for the next 5 years, probably, the market was heavily shaken by all sorts of stories, scams and so on. So these were, well, fishy stories, as they say. How did it affect you?
Well, look, when that happened, during those initial periods, we weren't operating yet. We only launched in 2020, like our main partners from the first wave, so to speak, in Belarus. But otherwise, we're part of the industry. Well, yes, in any case, certain criminal-related things, well, they pass us by due to the fact that we have strict compliance. We can't take on... Well, first of all, we don't want to... Yeah, you might say now, they do it, but they can't. No, we don't want to and won't, of course, take that on. We have huge risks of our own. We don't risk our license. We don't risk the well-being of our other clients, absolutely. That's why we work with legal finances. So, of course, a general sort of, wave will always hit you, either from a price increase or a price decrease. But that's more just market regulation and...
Well, market volatility.
Fluctuations. Yeah, so, well, it affects you in the normal course of business. That's normal. It's another matter if something somewhere with someone specifically affected them because their liquidity vanished or disappeared. That's a different issue, yeah. I meant
there were a lot of scam projects.
There were many. Unfortunately.
There are many now too.
And many now, unfortunately. But here's also a brief moment. The philosophy. Like scammers are, and unfortunately they probably will be. And the key, probably one of the key features of fraudulent activity, is that these guys adapt to technologies faster than anyone. Because they learn, they're skilled. But I was still surprised to find out that just 2 years ago, another pyramid scheme was exposed, right? Which existed by, among other things, slapping the word blockchain on top, and then they added artificial intelligence later. People still fall for it. Yeah, and the principles are the same. Basically taking money from the public.
Thirst for money?
Yes, it's always there, only the tools change. Unfortunately, these people use the same modern technologies that we use. And that's why we have to spend a lot of time and effort, on kind of deflecting the unnecessary negativity directed at us. The aura and reputation of projects, blockchain projects, crypto projects get tarnished, and then we have to deal with it. And explain that, no, it's not all the same thing. And not everyone is a scammer. First of all, essentially, we consider ourselves a small bank that just works with a somewhat unique asset.
That's exactly why we moved into strict regulation, into a fairly strong jurisdiction, for that very reason. In order to distance ourselves as much as possible from all of this market noise, right? And to ensure that we are always operating under strict regulation and proper licensing, we take every possible precaution. So I completely agree with you on this point. Where there is money involved, there will always be people who are eager and looking for opportunities to get their hands on it as quickly as possible, sometimes without considering the consequences. So what else can we discuss? Or can we basically wrap things up nicely and finish, right? So Dmitry, Olga, did you want anything else?
Well, we've been at it for an hour and a half, I think.
No, well, maybe there was something that you wanted to discuss, or perhaps there is something else on your mind that we have not talked about yet.
Only if you tell us something interesting about Kazakhstan.
By the way, speaking of Kazakhstan, I'm flying out tomorrow evening, and on Tuesday we'll have a business breakfast at the KS exchange. Well, a major operator like that. KS is the national currency and stock exchange. And they attract a lot of investment from the Middle East. So essentially the AIFC today, well, I'll just speak within the framework of the AIFC because I interact with it. In this jurisdiction, a lot of investment comes in from Vietnam, from Arab countries. They've become... The AIFC today is really a hub in Central Asia for attracting big and very big money. So I'm by no means recommending it to you. Well, not advertising it. I'm just telling you that basically you should consider, well, just pay attention to the market of Central Asia. And to enter it, basically the AIFC is a good jurisdiction to have a presence in. On what terms? Well, basically, I hope that we'll maintain some kind of connection in the future. So if you're interested, I can give you, some little insights.
Thank you.
Maybe something will interest you. Maybe we can even interact in some way. In general, like here with us, we're always open to all sorts of collaborations and so on. So by the way, started to get actively involved. In Kazakhstan, funds are also very well developed. Local ones, specifically local funds. Well, just so you understand, there are 50,000 official millionaires in Kazakhstan. Just like that for a moment. Well, that's official ones. Well, you can safely multiply that by 3, considering their industrial and raw material base there and so on. So there are quite a lot of wealthy people here, so the market is quite promising, well, in our understanding. And well, we're not just looking at Kazakhstan. We are, of course, looking at the countries of Central Asia. And the first expansion we're considering for ourselves is, of course, the Uzbekistan market. It's just very interesting there. The only downside that's kind of stopping us today is the lack of clear regulation. They have some agency that works under the auspices of their central bank, some investment agency. I don't remember exactly what it's called. So within the framework of this agency, they're trying to regulate something there. But I repeat, it's still quite a gray area in terms of the cryptocurrency sphere there. Well, just everything.
You said yourself, maybe that's a good thing.
Yeah, so here it's like, well, in any case, the population is very actively using this whole thing. So that's why there are many companies there. Yes, well, so you understand yourself that giants like, say, Instaforex, Alpari, they don't just enter a market for no reason, right? They enter where the population's capitalization is very high. So that's how it is. Well, in the near future, we plan to obtain an additional license specifically for cryptocurrency activities within the AIFC. Because for us, the issue is acute. Well, I told you about receiving crypto, being able to exchange it and settle with clients and so on. So I hope that in the next 6 months or so, we'll close this issue. Because if we go back to regulation, and it's clear that in every jurisdiction, and the AIFC is no exception here. I said that as of today, yes. Well, that's data for 2025. There are already about 5,000 companies, yes. Well, naturally, their case is growing, including those companies whose licenses have already been revoked. Yes, because due to preferential taxation within the jurisdiction, companies enter that, just use this jurisdiction in terms of, tax breaks and so on. Therefore, how much tougher entry has become now, it's hard for me to say, but nevertheless, what trend I like, is that today, they already earlier this year, literally on February 4th, there was an announcement that they opened a customer center right next door to our office, right in the same block. So they opened it. This didn't exist before. So before you had to, at least when we applied to the AIFC, our agent brought us there. We got a license. It was all in terms of, through correspondence. So, overall, they are open for communication. They regularly hold open meetings with companies that operate under a license. You can literally walk up to the director of the AIFC center. And even they are as open as possible. You can chat. I don't know how it is in your HTTP. Can you like sign up for something there, right?
Yes.
And how is your interaction, by the way? Do you have some kind of curator, who guides you or not? And how is it for you?
We have a department that handles reporting, which we interact with. If there are questions, we're quite free to schedule a meeting.
So that's great.
Yes, everything's here. There's no excessive bureaucracy here.
Well, you see, that's wonderful. So there's a lot in common. I think that if there are any lags there, I don't know, gaps, that we talked about, I think Belarus will catch up very quickly here. Well, on an optimistic note, I suggest we end our conversation. I really hope that it was both useful and interesting for everyone who is watching and listening. Throughout our conversation, we emphasized, highlighted, and conveyed many important things, I think. I sincerely hope that it will be very useful and informative for all the viewers of Bynex and ex-Chief Central Asia, giving them the opportunity to learn something new and insightful about the cryptocurrency market, not only in Belarus and Kazakhstan, but also in the wider world, right?
Yes, I think due to timing, we just didn't get to everything, so we'll gladly consider this the first, but not the last.
I really hope that we'll meet again, maybe more than once. And today we touched upon quite a few topics that we could in principle talk about. Yes, they're a bit tedious. Yes, they're a bit cliche by now, but nevertheless, we found out today that our legal framework is basically more or less the same with its pros and cons and so on. So I suggest we get together again. At least maybe not this year, maybe next year, when the National Bank finally launches the digital Belarusian ruble.
And we'll be able to touch it.
Yes, why not? And we will definitely discuss that fact.
Good.
We would really, truly love to have you come and visit us here in Kazakhstan. So I'm definitely taking this opportunity to personally invite you. We hope you can make it.
Thank you. We accept the invitation.
Super wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all for your attention.